Hello there, folks. Hey, this is Joe Wazoo here. Hey, today we're doing something interesting. We're writing on really our own driver to talk RS-232 serial comms to a AMETEK XP2i sensor. This unit here has a DB9 port on the back, and it supports RS-232 ASCII protocol. So this product, let me open the manual here. This is kind of the manual on the product, and what have you. Oops, let me go right here. We can stop right here, make it a little bigger. We can see the serial interface has a 9600 891 baud right here for our protocol conversion or for our communications. So in Crimson, I'll start off over here in communications. And if I make this a little wider so you can see it, you can see here I'm using the programming port right here. I've picked the driver raw serial. So under the pick button right here, under the system, I'm picking this particular driver. That's what I'm using here for this raw serial protocol. And you can see I've got a 9681 and none here for my protocol here. And I got this set up as a master or slave. I don't think that matters, but I got a master mode here. And on update, I'm calling a program called receive data. I want to point out to you here that this particular port, let's see if my arrow tool works today. Right here is port number 1. Crimson will give you some important things. So this is port number 1. So if I want to send a command out this particular port, I will use a PortPrint command to do such a thing. And then to receive that in, I will use that port number 1 to receive the data, which I'll show you here in a second. So on this application, we've got this up and running here. Let me go ahead and go to the actual web page here that's running. So if I click the menu button, first I want to show you the wiring. That was our hardest thing to figure out on this thing. And so on all the Red Line products, the RS-232 port uses an RJ12 connector here, a 6-pin old telephone style RJ12 with 6 conductors. And generally speaking, I believe these are the color codes of those usually. And I'm showing here the pinouts. The only thing I did different here is that I swapped pins 3 and 2 or 2 and 3 for the TX and RX coming out of here into here. So that would be pins 2 and 3 I have swapped on this particular guy here. I'm also using on this hardware, I went ahead and used a RJ12 cables. I cut one end off, and then on the other end I've got a DB9 field wireable thing. This is a wonderful product because it's got the pinouts with the numbers, and so that's what I've got labeled. And I have it wired just as you see right here. The color codes go to this particular unit on those pins, so that works out great. All right. So if I go back to the menu here, I've got both a raw testing page and then I've got the final result. I started off with this raw testing page because I wanted to test and see what kind of communications or what I was getting back and forth from this unit. So if I go to Crimson, let me just show you something. Over here in Programs, I've got a program called Receive Data. And this particular program here will receive data on that port. So this is what's being called over here in communications. That's what's being called here. Now, normally, if you attend one of my classes, you know I'm a huge advocate for drag and drop. For some odd reason, this is one of those fields that doesn't let you do that, so you have to manually type the name of the program here that you want to call. I couldn't get it to drag and drop, but you just manually type it there. So that's the program that it's calling whenever I receive a message. So this particular unit, I'm doing some things here. I'm filling an array and so forth, and then I'm doing some methods to find the left and the mid of a string, whatever comes back from this thing. So I've used this, and over here in display pages on the raw testing page, I have, if I go to data tags over here, we have a number of tags in here, and I have an array tag here that parses all the elements and will show us the raw ASCII format of those when we get them in. So if I wanted to say, for instance, say I wanted to inquire a serial number on this unit. So let me go to the manual here. Let me find this in here. It's giving you all kinds of nice examples in here, which is really awesome in this manual. So if I'm looking for the serial number, for instance, it gives you an example string. Question mark, capital S, N, and a pound symbol here for the serial number. Now, I did find out the testing, they have to be capitalized. It doesn't really say that in the manual here, but any lowercase doesn't work. So according to this, if I send this a string of serial number, or a question mark, serial number, and pound symbol, also, let me slide all the way back up here. I believe that up on top here, it tells us that each line will end with a carriage return and line feed right here. Carriage return line feed. Okay, so if I go back to Crimson, let's investigate this serial number button. So if I go to properties, I want you to see something here. There's the text, whatever, no big deal there. If I go to the action tab, look here in the action tab. I'm using a command called PortPrint. There's number 1, that's the port number. And then here's the string I'm sending. And I've got quotation, double quotation marks, the question mark, SN pound, and double quotation marks. And then I'm using this /R/N, which is the format for R's for carriage return and line feed on here. And I got this function over here in the lower right corner. Go to System, expand the functions tree, go down to comms port, and here's the port print. That's the command I'm using. Now, you can right click on any of these and it'll show you help info of how it works, but that's what I'm doing there. So let's see if this works. So if I go back to the web browser that's running, and if I press the serial number thing here, let's see what we get here. So you can see when I did that, I got this raw string back here. I'm showing you right here the ASCII characters of those. So 20 is a space, 33 is a 3, 0D, and so forth, the carriage return. So these are the raw forms that are coming in here. So I was using that for testing just to see what would happen here in this guy. And then I'm going through and I'm parsing that and getting the first line of data and a second line. Some of the items in the manual, let me go back to where you can see. Some items, like the model number, will give you just one line, whereas the pressure can give you 2 lines, or it'll put it in one single line. Where's the single? One line. One line will put it like that, or like this, will give you 2 lines. So it's kind of interesting product. But anyway, so that's what I was using for testing. Let me go back to Crimson, and that's really, I started with that to see what was happening, and then I can set off different things here. And I went a little further in this application. I thought, because we have all these different things we can access, I went ahead and created a query kind of command. I have a tag called query, and depending on which one that is, will automatically determine what I'm going to grab. So for instance, if I wanted to find out the message thing, whatever that might be, I'll set the message bit to a 1. I'll show you that in a second. Or if I wanted to find the model, for instance, I have a tag called model2 equals 1. Let's look at that one. So if I go over here to the left and I go to model, this flag tag right here, I want you to notice something. On the triggers tab, when I active on that, I'm sending out a PortPrint command with the question mark and then this mod I put in here, and there's that string. And then down here, 500 milliseconds later, let me go here to where you can see this. I'm taking the first line data comes back and I put it into a model string. I'm sorry, actually a model. Let's see, this one here is a model string. Yeah, I picked the string one. So I'm doing that, and then I'm resetting that variable. Let's pick on another one here. Let's look at something. Here we go. Let's look at the pressure one, for instance. So the pressure one, it actually gives back a floating point number. So on the pressure one, I'm doing a text to float command. I'm taking the first line and putting it into a floating point tag called pressure underscore high. You can see that over here. There's one. That's right here. See the flag tag, or the real flag, or the floating point pi symbol. Sorry, that indicates that that's a floating point number. And then I'm also grabbing units out of there. So let me show you how this works. So if we go to the main page, that was the testing. If I go to the main, and here's the query thing. So let's say, team, that I want to query and I want to look at the message. So if I press the message, I get back some number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know what that means, but that's what I get back from it. There was nothing in line 2, so there's nothing there. Let's go look and see if we can get the model number back from this. So if I go model, look, it fills in with the model. That's the exact model I'm using right here to my left. That's the model plugged in. If I go down to pressure, let's go to the pressure here. So you can see pressure reads in right here. I don't have anything connected to this thing, but if I take it, and let's say that I blow on this thing, I'm going to blow on it and try to pick the pressure. So let's see here. I'll go here. Here we go. And that time I got up to 0.8. Let's try something opposite. Let's see if apparently I can't increase that much pressure, but I can. Give me a second here. Let me go to pressure again here. Let me suck on it here. and you can see I can get a more of a negative draw right there. So that's the pressure there. Whoops, I almost dropped it off the table here. What else we got on here? Got pressure one line. They do have another one where they just feed it back as one line. And if we go to the next, pressure high. So that's the highest I must have got it while I was testing it there. Oh, did I get my key? What happened to my internet here? Okay, let's go here. Pressure low. There, I got that. That's the lowest I must have got it. What else we got on here? The range. This is a 5,000 PSI sensor. Average pressure, probably that because I'm not really fluctuating much. Average window size, 8, whatever that means in this documentation. And I can get the serial number. This is also interesting. The serial number, let me show you this one. Oops. Here's the serial number. Serial number is interesting because it has two lines. It has a 3 and then this number. So I basically took this, took it times 10,000 there, moved it on over, actually 100,000, and then I added that to it. So that gives the serial number. That is actually the serial number on the unit right here. If I had a real picture of this, that is really the serial number listed right here on that unit. And then there's a version number we can get out of this too, which I don't know what that means, but if I go to the version number, feeds back that particular number. Now there is a couple variables you can change in here. For instance, the message number. Based on the document, let me go to the manual here, team. Let's see if I can find the message here. So there's some commands you can do: clear, disable, enable the display, message store. So if I put an exclamation point message and then some X up to 12 characters here, I can put in a number. So in this case, what I'm doing here on this one, if I go down here, and let's say I want to change the message to 8675309, put that in there. If I send that command to it, I get back this A0, which is in the document. It says it supposedly read it correctly. I want to read back the message and see if I get that number here. So let's go here. Let's go to message, boom, and there's the number. So all working great, looks good. And in the database here, the customer can now pick whatever particular tags they want to do, and they're off to the races. All they have to do to read a certain value is basically set whatever flag tag is, and it'll then return that particular value. So kind of a cool little video concept here, working with an RS-232 strings coming out of a device. I want to make another video that's probably a little simpler than this, but this is one with the AMETEK here, RS-232 serial comms. The important thing here is two things. We had to make sure we got the wiring correct. That was battle number one. And number two, we had to get the documentation from the manufacturer to see what are the commands that we need to set or send over serial to get this thing to work. And I actually originally used putty and a USB to DB9 connector on my PC to originally test this, but now I've got the red line talking to it, so everything looks good. It's basically we're writing our own driver here. Anyway, if you want to copy this database, don't be afraid to send me email and with the request of the file name. And this one's called, I put the file name here. It's called RS-232 to AMETEK, and I'll be glad to send you a copy of the database. Hey, thanks a lot, folks. Have a great day.